All right, it's time to talk with our featured guest, Brett Walters. Brett, how's it going?
Great. How you doing?
Doing pretty good. Thanks for asking. Thanks for asking. If you can start kicking things off by telling us a little bit about your practice, who you're serving, what you got going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Our practice is called Villagio Dental, and we're located in Katy, Texas. That's a suburb of Houston. We started out as primarily a single doctor, single location, general dentist. My wife is the dentist, and she's been practicing at that single location for a number of years, started in '06. I joined the business in 2020, so fairly recently. And my background is not dentistry, it's sort of technology. And so we decided we really wanted to expand our business and grow it. So that's what we've been doing. We now have a second location, which is right on the edge of Katy and Fulshire, which is a little further west. We have two locations, general dentistry. Our claim to fame is we're open evenings and weekends and all kinds of crazy hours because we really want to help working people and get their teeth taken care of.
So then you joined in 2020. What was the push to join and decide, okay, we got to grow during this time?
Oh, well, we were making our plans in 2019. So, so that is a funny story. I was in a leadership position at a technology company and loved that industry and had a lot of fun. I was looking at maybe starting my own company or doing something different. And I've been helping my wife on the side, doing a bunch of things, looking at some contracts, looking at vendor stuff. The more I started digging into the business side of dentistry, I got really interested in it. We both have an ethos of helping people and wanting to give back. And so we just thought, what is the most impact we could have from where we live and what we do? And really that dental business model was like, man, we can impact a lot of people. We decided, okay, how would this look? What was going on? All that. So we made all these plans, decided this crazy idea, we're going to work together. And then I left my job at the end of February of 2020. And then we shut down, obviously, a couple of weeks later. So, yeah, I didn't plan to come on board during COVID. It just happened that way.
Yeah. It's okay.
But we got through that, obviously, and we've been steadily growing since then.
Wonderful. So then can you give us a peek behind the curtain and share what drives, I guess, the passion for serving your specific patient base? How have patient needs or expectations evolved over time, and how has your practice adapted?
That's a great question. There's always a balance in anything you do, but what we saw, and even my wife will admit, this old guard of dentistry was, hey, we're patient-centric. We're patient-centric. And I'd go to some meetings and you got to be patient-focused and patient-focused. And then we'd see these dental offices and they're open from, 9 to 4, Monday through Thursday, half a day on Friday. That's not patient-focused. That's really dentist-focused. The idea for us was like, we really have seen a huge shift in convenience for all aspects of life. You can think of something and Amazon will put it in your hand. Patients and customers' expectations have grown over time. So we really felt like there wasn't a lot in our community that was helping people. Look, people have to work two jobs now. The single income families are a lot less than they used to be. So people have to work two jobs. Their kids are in school. There's extracurricular activities. People are very busy. And we thought if we really want to impact them and help them, we need to meet them where they are. And what's convenient for people is to get their teeth clean on the evenings and on the weekends when they have more time. So that's what we thought. We said, if we can help people make it convenient for them to come in and just get their regular cleaning and checkups, then when they actually need services and they need, a crown, a filling, or a root canal, we've already been there, we've helped them out, and then they'll trust us to accept the treatment. And it's just pretty simple.
Nice. Now, given your practice location and setup, was that appropriate, or did you see other people doing this too, or nobody was doing this?
There's a few people that are open like half a day Saturday here and there, and then maybe one night in the evening or any of that kind of stuff. There's not a lot of people. I mean, we're open till 8 o'clock at night. We're open on Saturdays. We're open on Sundays. We're one of the few. There's only a couple in the greater Houston area that have the crazy hours that we did.
Okay. So then with that, are you guys closed any day of the week or no?
We have one location that's closed on a Wednesday and the other one's closed a couple days a week. Between the two offices, which are about 10 miles apart, we are open 7 days a week.
So have you noticed any trends? For example, many practices 9 to 4, right? You notice the same things like, hey, maybe they want you to open on a Saturday, or maybe I'm trying to get earlier appointments. It's very limited. But you opened up like you said,
Yeah.
crazy hours, right? Later on in the evening and then weekends. Have you noticed any trends in patient behavior or preferences that are specific to that type of setup?
There's not necessarily trends in the sense of patient behavior. We do get wonderful reviews. We get people thanking us for being open those hours. We get a lot of gratitude and feedback from our patient base, which is fantastic. One of the things is there are some specific procedures that really lend itself to be done better during the daytime if we're doing some very complicated procedures and things like that. And you'll have some patients that say, but I want to do that on a Saturday. And we're like, we're not quite set up to do all that on a Saturday. This would be better to do, during the day. So every once in a while, when you have to tell somebody, the difference between hygiene is open all the time and maybe very complicated procedures are mainly during the day, you get a little bit of pushback because it's been so convenient.
Mhm.
But the reality is people don't want to take off work to get their teeth cleaned. They don't want to take their kid out of their school to get their teeth cleaned. If they need a root canal and a crown and a major procedure and they have to take off work, that's a big deal. They'll do that. The trend we see is we get more patient flow and they refer more people and we grow. Those are the big trends, right?
Nice. Okay. Okay. So then when you jumped on board, Brett, was that the plan? Like, hey, within the next year or so, we got to open the second, or do you already had the second location?
We just had the one location. My goal was always to grow and expand the business. Now, I had a lot to learn. I had business experience, but I didn't have dental business experience. There's a big learning curve. Healthcare is a different animal, and just learning all about insurance. You have this weird thing called production, but that's really not your production. Then you have adjusted production. There was a lot of different things. Most businesses like, okay, what's our revenue? What's our cost? Here's our profit. Pretty straightforward. Dentistry and insurance complicates things. But once I got a grasp of that, we really got a feel for what we were doing. We really got a good marketing plan in place and finally got some good partners along those lines. We really always wanted to expand and grow the business. We just opened this second location. It's coming up on 1 year. So we
nice.
opened in mid-September last year.
Okay, nice. I know you said insurance kind of complicates things. Have you experimented with different practice models like fee for service or specifically insurance based? And what have you learned from those experiences?
We've primarily been an in-network PPO dentist. That's worked for us. Now, obviously, we've experienced some of the pains of the cost of goods and labor and everything else that everybody else has experienced over the past couple of years. So we've had to go back to insurance companies and renegotiate fees and do a bunch of stuff. There are times we've been out of network with an insurance company here or two as we're doing those negotiations because the fee schedule didn't really change for a long time. And so we just couldn't do dentistry at those fees. Our goal is to be as much as possible, as long as we get decent fees. We don't need the highest fees in the world, but we need to be able to make a reasonable profit and run our business. As long as we can get the insurance companies on board with helping us raise fees and being in line with what we need to run our business, we want to be in network. I haven't jumped into the fee-for-service world yet. I know some people do it. It's not necessarily our model because our model is more about volume and having people come back and return and all that. Fee-for-service is a little slowed down, and they're more about one visit with a patient and taking a lot of time, but the fees are a lot higher. So I haven't done that model. I don't know if that's really where we're going. We're more about sort of like, okay, most people have insurance in our area, and most people have jobs, and most people want to go to a provider that takes their insurance. I don't want to necessarily go against the grain on that. I want to go in the stream.
Yeah, no, 100%. When it comes to the fees, is there like a specific system or benchmark that you have where you're like, oh man, they just won't lower the fee, so we're going to have to drop them? And if you do drop them, how do you let the patients know this?
Yeah, so we've gone through this a couple of times. One of the big things that we do is we really look at, okay, here's a baseline of where we are in network with the majority of our vendors. And if we're significantly lower, we really can't do that. What we always tell our patients is, and we communicate is, we still take insurance and we'll still work with their insurance company and we'll work to lower their out-of-pocket expenses as much as possible. Even if we have to run something out of network, we try not to charge them a bunch up front. We'll still just do the estimated insurance and say, hey, here's your insurance portion. Here's what we estimate your responsibility to be. And so most of the time that works pretty well if we can communicate that effectively.
Okay, nice. So they basically say like, yeah, sure. And then from that point on, continue the relationship.
We just try to be transparent as much as possible. I mean, look, there's some people, it doesn't matter if you explain it a million different ways. If you are at a network, they are not going to come back and we can't help those people. But if we have a discussion with somebody that's open to listening to how insurance works and how we help to mitigate that and still provide them with quality of care, and that insurance doesn't determine how we take care of you and what the outcomes are, most of the time we have a good conversation and those things work out.
Nice. Okay. So then I know you mentioned once you had a good marketing plan in place, what were you doing before that?
Being in network was our marketing, just being on those lists. We had struggles with patient flow. And I'm not going to name names, some of these sort of like cookie cutter SEO companies out there that are mass market. And I started digging in and they're really good about flashing a bunch of charts and showing you a bunch of, Google Analytics and all that kind of stuff and claiming every new customer that walks through the door was generated by them. None of that felt very accurate. And, having a business background, I started really digging into those things. So we've gone through a couple of iterations of what works and what doesn't work. We now have really good mix of things, I would say. We believe in direct mail. We mail out to all the customers in our area, our potential people, because it's all about eyeballs. Sometimes, the Google ads can get you somebody if they're right in the market, and that's good. Sometimes when they search, SEO is a great way to grab somebody's attention. If you can end up on the map, that's even better. But sometimes people aren't really in the market for a dentist and they just see that drip of your flyer every now and then and they put it off to the side. And whenever they are in the market, they'll go, oh, you know what? I need to go see these guys. So we do that mix of the digital and direct mail.
So then was there a marketing strategy that initially seemed like a risk, but ended up exceeding your expectations? And what did you learn from that experience?
Our foray into pay-per-click seemed a little risky and expensive, and it got that way. If you're not with the right company and the right partner on those lines, you can overspend. I know this for a fact.
Yeah.
There's a law of diminishing returns, and I have found it. That's the big one. If you're not keeping an eye on that, especially if you're outsourcing, we're not big enough to have that stuff in-house, and your partner you're with is just spending money willy-nilly, it can get pretty expensive pretty quick. So that was a little bit of risk. We've honed that in a little bit. We found a little bit of our sweet spots. We've got a company that we deal with now that I think does a better job of managing the pay-per-click side better than what we had in the past.
Okay. So then if you don't mind me asking, what is the company you're working with? Who are they? And then how much are you budgeting for marketing?
Last year, we were on the high side. We were probably in the 10% production. We were spending a ton. We've gotten that down in the 6 to 7% range. So again, that law of diminishing returns, I was doing a lot last year to try to bump up patient flow and grow the top line and get this second location open. So some of it was necessary. Some of it we found we were overspending. This year, we've been much more intentional. We're working with a company called TNT Dental out of Dallas. They've been really, really helpful for us and working with us. We have a mail vendor that we still use, Chris Ad. They're fantastic. Then we use TNT for the dental. Happy with both of the entities.
How do you balance the need for marketing investment with other practice expenses? And what metrics guide your decision-making process?
We're getting better at that. We've kind of looked at our P&L and we keep track of our budgets and we do some of that stuff. But what we were having a hard time with was really looking at the way our accounting was set up to mirror some other best practice type accounting methods for specifically dental. So we had a non-specific dental type structure. We're getting better at structuring our P&L to where it is more dental focused, things like putting associate doctors into cost of production so that we can really start benchmarking this data. We look at things like what our administrative costs are, what our marketing budget is, breaking out some of our employee costs and putting them in the right buckets so we've got a better understanding of those. So that's been a really big push this year, is really getting a better grip on that. I would say our focus the first 3 years of me coming on board has been grow the top line. I just want patients in the door, and we're slowing down a little bit this year, really focused on EBITDA and profitability and really just making sure the business is healthy, the metrics are good, and we are within those benchmark ranges.
Okay, nice. So then right now, currently, I guess both practices, but one practice, how many new patients are you currently attracting monthly?
Our initial location, which is our Cinco Ranch location, it's the
Mhm.
founding location my wife started. That one, we're averaging about 135 new patients a month. Our new location, again, the one we opened last September, we're averaging about 75.
Okay.
So, yeah,
Wow. So the Cinco Ranch location, how many ops do you have there and how big is that team?
we have 7 ops. Yeah. It's hard to say their team. We have 30 employees total, and they all
Mhm.
kind of go back and forth because we're only 10 miles apart from each other. So
Oh,
we have a lot of back and forth assistants and hygienists. Even the front desk will go back and forth a little bit.
yeah. Do you ever find that it's like competing each other since they're only 10 miles apart or no?
There's a little overlap for sure.
Mm.
We've had some people leave the primary to go to the secondary, if you will,
Yeah.
because it's closer to their house because we were marketing, a pretty big area. But that second location is really feeding a whole new area of West expansion called Cross
Mm.
Creek Ranch and Fulshire. They're building a bunch of homes out there. And we really felt like that area was a really good area to capture as it's starting to explode. And I think over time, it'll be as big or bigger than the primary.
Yeah. Man, it's growing so fast out there.
I
So
know.
then, during periods of high patient influx, when a lot of new patients were coming in, what systems or protocols did you put in place to maintain quality care without overwhelming your team?
It's a really good one. So it's one of our philosophies, and this is not always good for profitability, but it's absolutely critical, is we would rather be overstaffed than understaffed. Somebody calls in sick, you have an influx of patients you weren't expecting, whatever the case. There are times where we're understaffed. It's rare. Our goal is I got to have people in place to make sure we can handle this patient flow. My job is to get them in the door from a business, from a marketing standpoint. That's great. But if you can't take and handle that patient flow and you don't have the right providers in place, it doesn't work. So we're not going to sacrifice quality for volume. We make sure that we're always looking ahead at our numbers. So, for example, we've got a really good system where we're looking 6 months out. We're always tracking, okay, how many people have we pre-appointed into the following 6 months? What is our expected growth? How does that look on a schedule? How many patients does that equate to? How many people do I need? How many hygienists do I need? Assistants, doctors, all of that stuff. We're constantly looking and making sure that we're meeting that demand because there are times where we've got a pretty good temp network. There are times where, if we've got somebody on vacation, a lot of times we can hand it with our internal staff. Sometimes we got to call temp agencies and get a temp hygienist in here and there. So we're not above doing that if we need to. We like to use our people because we really focus on training and our system and our methods. But from time to time, you got to supplement even with temps because you never want to be understaffed when patients are coming in the door.
Yeah. What temp network do you use?
We use cloud a little bit. I know that we've been doing this for so long. My office manager's got a lot of people just on speed dial. So she's got her own little network she's created. We used to have temp agency, but I think some of those temp agencies didn't make it after COVID. They kind of withered away a little bit. So cloud's been good. And then there's one called, I think, Quickly.
Okay.
They're pretty cool because if you're really in need, you're struggling, you can like bid high and say, I'll pay X amount over going rate because I need somebody right now. And so they have a good name.
All righty. Nice. So then I know you mentioned you like to train them, get them to understand your systems and things like that. So what system would you say is unique in your practice?
Wow. I don't know if there's anything necessarily super unique about what we do. I think there are some differentiators. One of the things that is fairly unique is we structure our schedule for what the patient mindset is.
Mhm.
So, for example, if it's easier and more convenient for our patients to come get their 6 month recall and hygiene visits done in the evenings on the weekends, I want more chairs allotted to hygiene because hygiene flow is the key to this whole thing. It's the recurring revenue. It's where you find all the treatment. It's the secret sauce. If you got good hygiene flow, you got good production because you're going to find dentistry, right?
Mhm.
So we never want to restrict those chairs in the evenings and on Saturdays because the more we can get hygiene flow, the more we're going to do dentistry. So I'll give an example. Imagine 7 ops across right here.
Mhm.
During the day, I'll have 2 of those dedicated for hygiene. from about 8 o'clock in the morning till about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The other 5 chairs, I've got a couple of dentists working, and they're splitting all those other 5 chairs and doing multiple columns of treatment. Now, doctors love doing treatment, not as much the hygiene checks, but in the evening, we flip it. So now in the evening, I've got 5 chairs dedicated to hygiene and just 2 chairs to take care of a little bit of overflow evening type treatment, some simple, maybe a crown or filling or something like that. But that helps us maximize the amount of hygiene visits that we can get when they are convenient for patients. And then we reappoint all of the dentistry that we find back into the daytime when I've got the chairs allotted for treatment. So just the structure of our schedule is designed around convenience, and it helps us truly maximize patient flow.
So then what's evening? When does it switch?
4 to 8 p.m. Yeah, so those 4 hours.
So at that time, 5 new hygienists come?
We do what's called assisted hygiene. So we have 2 hygienists doing single column hygiene during the day. And then in the evening, I've got 5 columns. Now, I would love it if all 5 show up, but statistically, my sort of show rate is usually about 80%, 20% drop off. So I know if I book 5, about 4 are going to show up. And then sometimes you'll have a kid in there too. We'll have 2 hygienists and 2 assistants working those columns and doing assisted hygiene. So they break it up where the assistant's in one room doing the x-rays, doing the intraoral photos. The hygienist is starting the cleaning in the other room, and then the providers just switch rooms. So that way they are handling all 4 to 5 patients in that hour.
When you say 80%, one typically drops off, that's the hygienist or the patients?
The patients.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Gotcha.
So in effect, they're really working 4 columns. I book 5 so that I can expect 4, so that I've got 4 providers that are working all of those.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, the 5th shows up, but it works pretty well because we've got usually a little extra staff.
And then 2 doctors in the afternoon.
That's right. Doctors can help out. If it gets really busy, a doctor can do a cleaning. We're all about teamwork. Doctor can take an x-ray. A hygienist can take an x-ray. A hygienist can do photos. So we try not to get into this, I only do this or I only do that. Now, obviously, we can't go the other way. I can't have an assistant cleaning teeth or a hygienist doing a root canal. But if you can do everything, we like to find people that are, have a little humility, and we want them doing what they're trained to do. But if they need to clean teeth and help out, they can. That's really the spirit of whatever it takes that we're looking for.
Okay, I like that. So then what were the initial challenges in implementing this system? How did you overcome them?
Boy, I don't think you have enough time for this, Michael. You know what they say, right? Nothing worthwhile is easy. This has taken a while. We've gone through several iterations of schedule and all of this kind of stuff. A big challenge initially is just getting staff that will work these hours. It was by far the number one challenge. Over time, we built in some incentive programs. We pay very well. We do some things like that. But even then, when we first started out, we were asking people to work some evenings and Saturdays, and we had some high turnover because people were getting burnout. We were super convenient for patients. We were not in that work-life balance range where we needed to be. So that was number one. We had to get to a model that could really find that balance with being super convenient, quality of care for patients, as well as having good work-life balance and good pay and benefits for our team. And really what it took for us for this model to work was we went to a 3-day work week schedule for our team. And this is everybody involved except a couple of key managers. And we have an insurance person that works a regular 9 to 5. But for the most part, our team members work 3 days a week. And so what that looks like is they'll work maybe a Tuesday from 8 to 8, and they'll work a Friday from 7 to 7, and they'll work a Sunday 9 to 5. And it averages out at about 30 to 32 hours a week. Sometimes we have some training hours that we build in. It's not quite a 40-hour work week, but man, they work really hard for 3 days out of the week. Then they're off for 4 days. And we pay a little bit above average of what people are normally getting paid. So it comes close to if they were working 40 hours somewhere else. They love it. When you really start communicating with your team that, hey, we know that your personal life is important too, And we know that this is what you do, to put food on the table and feed your family. But we value you and we want you to have a really good work-life balance. It starts to click with people. And we even had one person that left because the evenings and weekends, and she had kids and things like that. And she was like, I'm going to go to a regular 5-day-a-week job. And she called back and said, by the time I go to work and I sit in traffic and I get home, I'm getting home at 7, sometimes 7:30 at night, and I'm working 5 days a week instead of 3 days a week. I'm actually spending less time with my family working a traditional job. So that's been the key for us to get this schedule to work, is to make sure that we've got the right people in place that can work those hours and that can work this 3-day-a-week schedule and not get burnt out. It's been critical.
I like that. So except for the manager, right? Insurance coordinator and things like that.
Yeah, but the doctors, the hygienists, the assistants, the admin people, everybody's on a 3-day-week rotation. Now, some of them are on a true rotation as far as the days of the week. The doctors, we usually fix, they usually have a set schedule. We usually have them on the same days of the week just because it makes it easier for scheduling and consistency. But everybody else from hygienists on down, they're on a rotation. So they'll work 2 weeks, Monday, Wednesday, Saturday. And then they'll work 2 weeks, Sunday, Tuesday, Friday. And then it just rotates. And everybody gets to work with everybody else. Now, there's some challenges in that inherently with that much rotation. What I didn't ever want, I've seen this happen in the past, is you get a team mentality. When we first started, we had a day crew and a night crew. The day people say, oh, well, the night people didn't do this, and so we couldn't do this. And the night people would be like, oh, well, the day people left this for us, so we couldn't do this. And you had this team mentality, us versus them. Now, when everybody's working with everybody else, it really creates more of a unified approach to our care.
How did you make it to where it's, hey, guys, stop blaming the night crew, stop blaming the day crew, and so forth?
Initially, there was a lot of one-on-ones, a lot of even group meetings and things like that to try to get those kind of things going. What eventually solved the problem was just changing that and stop having night and day crew and just having everybody work a full shift, but only work 3 days a week instead of 4 or 5.
Okay. And I know you mentioned incentive programs and pay a little bit higher. If you want to give us a range or exact, whatever, what does the incentive programs look like that you implemented, and what does pay look like?
We used to have a program where we had an incentive base where we'd pay a lower per hour rate. We would incentivize sort of a per patient model for people that came in those evening and Saturday slots because we want to fill up those hygiene chairs. We got some feedback from the team that they wanted a more consistent approach. So we've actually kind of gone away from that and just gone to a little bit higher per hour rates, but kept it in line with what they were making when they had really good bonus structures. We still do quarterly bonuses and things like that, but we've actually just increased our hourly rates. I don't want to get too much into the specific hourly rates. We hire at pretty high rates. And it's just one of those things where if you want good people and you want people to stick around, you got to pay to play. And so we do.
And so transitioning a little bit, what's been some of the best companies you've worked with so far throughout this process?
Oh, wow. We've worked with some good companies, but the one that just jumps off the page for me has been our practice management software. We use Oryx. And coming from a technology background, I come in and I'm looking at this Dentrix server and the software that is written in the 1980s. And it's this Frankenstein module, and they may be a good company and they may have developed some new stuff. But, what I inherited back in early 2020, and, it's an old client server model. So it's an on-prem server. And it's just, I'm sitting on all of these patient records, and I have a cybersecurity background, run a cybersecurity team. The biggest risk is that on-prem server. It's the easiest target for hackers to get to is to go to a little dental office that has very light cybersecurity tools or monitoring and just hack that server and get that data, and lock it up either through ransomware or just pull the actual data and sell it on the dark web. And I was just like, this is a mess. This has got to go. Wow. So, man, I did an exhaustive list of companies to change our practice management software. And Oryx was just a breath of fresh air. The people that I was dealing with were fantastic. The technology itself was great. It was well thought out. The UI was good. The back end was good. The security was good. Their support was good. The implementation was good. Now, look, we've had some challenges. Anytime you rip that Band-Aid off and transition your main core software, whatever industry you're in, that is a challenge. It is daunting. We had bumps in the road, just like with any big transition software migration, but that is a fantastic organization. The leadership is fantastic. The team is really good. And the product itself has been fantastic. So that's been night and day for us, moving to a cloud practice management software that really encapsulate most of everything that we need all in one solution. At the time, I was looking at bolting on all these different applications, to Dentrix. From a usability standpoint, it was clunky, but also just from a cost standpoint, you start adding all these different vendors and you've got this wheel of costs going everywhere. I just wanted, some simple stuff like the text automation, like the online patient forms, all of the insurance integrated. I just wanted, a real solution, and I wanted it in the cloud, and I wanted it secure. And those guys just delivered.
Nice. Okay. So then, were there any unexpected benefits from this partnership with Oryx, and how has it influenced your decision making with other vendors?
One of the big things that kind of jumped out on the page for us was just the ability to have some of the insight with our dashboard and get some of the critical information and the operational data that we use in order to help us make better decisions. Again, coming from that tech background, one of the things I always preach to companies that we were working with is data is the new gold, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so using data to help you make informed decision and make good best practice changes in your organization is what we all strive for. I knew that it was going to be better than what I had, but I didn't know it was going to be really super easy and super fast to really, go on the dashboard, get quick information, have a good sense of where we are and what we need to do to make a quick change, and whether it may be what's our production, what's our new patient, what's our cancellation rate, what's our retention rate, what is our treatment acceptance, all these operational metrics at your fingertips and quickly. We used to have to basically go run a report in Dentrix in an old SQL server and go have lunch or have an extended coffee break and hope that report was done by the time you get back. Now, one of my associates can be sitting home at night and look at the schedule the next day and prepare clinically. One of my managers can run a production report and just make sure that everything's accurate for our payroll purposes. I can look at data from anywhere in the world. It's anywhere, anytime. A lot of stuff has caught up to that. But even in 2020, I found dentistry to be a little far behind the curve. I was like, what are we doing here? You want me to VPN to this old server and do what? And run a report that takes 30 minutes? No, we need data now. So I just think that instant access to good quality data was really important for us. And that's what we look for, just in anything going forward is, does the product deliver on what it says it's going to do? And they have.
Nice. Awesome, Brett. Okay. So then, transitioning, these next questions are so our audience can get to know Brett a little bit more. One of them is time travel, right? If you can go back in time and give your starting out self one piece of advice, but it can't be business related.
That one's going to get me, I'll try to keep it together here, but I would say self-care. Just a young, dumb guy running around and doing things in life and having a good time and all that kind of stuff. I really wasn't paying attention to, being healthy mentally, being healthy spiritually, being healthy in other aspects of my life. So I think it took me a long time to really grasp how important taking care of myself first, getting healthy for myself, doing things that are really important for me to stay connected and stay focused and stay in tune with my personal relationships, with my higher power, with my health physically. All of those things, I wish I'd just gotten on that train a lot earlier on in life. So the good news is you can reinvent yourself tomorrow. You can reinvent yourself at any time. Even though it took me a little later in life to do some things, it's the old put your oxygen mask on first before you can help others. I think I've really been a better husband, better father, a better coworker, partner, whatever you want to call it, now that I've really focused on working internally on some things that I needed to work on.
Gotcha. Okay. No, that's good. That's really good. So then next question is the soundtrack of success. So what song best represents the journey of your business? And can you share a specific moment that this song would perfectly fit?
There's a song, I don't know if you even heard of these guys. They're kind of older. They're called ELO, Electric Light Orchestra. They're a classic rock band. They had a song called Hold On Tight to Your Dreams. It's just a fantastic, catchy rock and roll song. I really love that song. It talks about when you're down, you really got to hold on to those dreams and keep working. And so there have been a couple instances where that's helped us. I mentioned one already, quitting a perfectly good paying job to come take the risk and work with my wife and build a dental practice. And then we shut down. We had to make some hard decisions. And we had a lot of people giving us advice of you got to fire everybody. And a lot of dental offices did. And I'm not judging them for doing that, but we were just sitting there thinking, man, a lot of these people are on health insurance with us. And if we furlough them or fire them, then they're going to lose health insurance. It was just such a crazy time. And so we just held on. We dipped into our personal money and we paid our employees and we got through those couple of months. And then when we reopened, we had a good, solid team of people that were committed. And I think that was a really good lesson for us to stand by our team and be with them and be one with them. It was dicey. We were right on the edge and we just had to hold on to that dream and get through that. I would say the second time that applied was when I was talking about the law of diminishing returns on the pay-per-click stuff. I made the almost fatal error, that being one. The second one was we had gotten our marketing and our new patient level up to a certain amount with our existing office. And so I made the assumption, quite frankly, that if we just did all of that exact same stuff, spent exactly the same amount, we would get all these exact same results at this location, right? And we didn't buy a new location. This was built from scratch. We took over a space, but we didn't buy a book of business. So there was no patients. Everything was new patients from day one. There's a lot of new patients that are in there that are referrals, that are your mailing efforts over time, that are not calculated just in the raw sheer amount of money that you're marketing in, or the amount of mailers you're sending, or the PPC dollars you're spending, or all that, the amount of times you answer the phone. All those things contribute. So we were spending the same amount of money at this new location, and we weren't getting the amount of results that we were getting over there. So we got to a point where we did that for a couple of months and it just wasn't sustainable. We were like, we're spending twice the amount of money per patient acquisition than we are here. And so we had to pivot because we had hired the, amount of staff that we needed for that patient flow. We had to reposition some people and bring them back over to our other office. And that's when we started going to this sort of team concept. Everybody's just going to work shifts everywhere. And that really helped save us just from a financial standpoint. So we just held on. We had to recognize where we were and we had to adapt and make changes and pivot without losing sight of our goal of helping people in these two areas that were open.
So you were expending a lot for your marketing, right? And then so you had to pivot. You pivoted the teams, but how did you pivot the marketing to where it started to work? Or was it just patience?
I had to cut back marketing. I had to fire a PPC guy that was running PPC. I had to do searches for a new marketing partner and all that kind of stuff. So in January is when we brought T&T on board to help streamline the digital side of things and the spend. And they're the ones that were really helpful in making sure that we weren't overspending in an area that is saturated. And they really understood what I was talking about, that law of diminishing the return. They're like, look, you can just keep spending and spending, but there's not that many people clicking on these ads. So, it doesn't matter how much you spend over this point in your little area right around your office, you're not going to see many more eyeballs. So you're just now overspending. So they help really educate me on that side of things.
Okay, gotcha. That's interesting. That's smart. Good for that. Yeah, that's really, really good. Awesome, Brett. Thank you so much for being with us. It's been a pleasure. But before we say goodbye, can you tell our listeners where they can find you?
Oh, yeah. VillagioDental.com in Katy, Texas. If you're in the West Houston area, even if you're a little further away, we make it super convenient. Open till 8 on Saturdays and on Sundays. VillagioDental.com.
Nice. So that's going to be in the show notes below. And Brett, thank you so much for being with us. It's been a pleasure, and we'll hear from you soon.
All right. Thanks for your time.